and welcome back to my channel. This is a bit of a strange video for me. I originally was going to pre-film this video, and then a couple of days ago I decided that I wasn't gonna go through with this idea, which I know sounds very cryptic, but I don't know, today I just kind of feel like actually I think it is something that needs to be spoken about. So here I am. So yesterday was the 2nd of Feb, and it was also Time to Talk Day, which has been set up by Mind and a couple other charities, I believe, as well. All about talking all things mental health and really just checking in with each other. So I thought it would be the perfect time to just touch a little bit on my mental health. I've been on quite a journey with it the last couple of years, and yeah, I just think that by talking about it, hopefully it might help some of you. You'll have to excuse me, I haven't long got out the shower, so yeah, we're just rolling with it. So my mental health was always alright. I never really struggled with it, not growing up, not really as a teenager. I had like what I now know is body dysmorphia. I couldn't think of the right word then. Looking back, very much so, and unfortunately that is something I do still struggle with. But in terms of things like depression, anxiety, like I wasn't too bad. Yeah, I had anxiety at school when it come to things like doing a speech or, you know, talking in front of people, but that was really it. And then I got into a relationship, which I probably really shouldn't have, and we now know it to be a controlling and abusive relationship, but obviously at the time I didn't see that. And I think looking back, that kind of just, it made me go on a slippery slope, because I become anxious over time that I was gonna do something wrong, mess up, get in trouble. Anyone that's been in a controlling or abusive relationship can probably relate more than people that haven't, which that's understandable. And I found that things were being controlled, what I wore, who I spoke to, where I went, very quickly. And I think if I had been stronger and not so naive, I probably would have put a stop to it and walked away, but I didn't. Here I am again, back talking to you, which I've loved doing, and which, to be honest, is nearly a year. In a couple of weeks' time as I film this, and which hopefully you'll also be seeing, because I am going to edit and put it up tonight, hopefully. It will mark a year since I came back home, which I feel like, just diving off subject slightly, I feel like not only has it gone really quick, a lot has happened, and it kind of feels like I've had 3 or 4 years squashed into a year, because just so much has gone on, which I'm sure I will share more of on this channel in the coming months. Obviously I'm still embargoed on a few things I can't talk about, but I can hint at them, and I think you will probably know what's going on, or what has gone on. Yeah, so back to this relationship. I think that's really when my mental health started to go down quite drastically, because I remember sitting, I had like my own dressing room and everything, you know, like life of luxury, and I'll admit that I was probably a bit blinded by that, to be fair, coming from where I'd come from, like in this house, which, don't get me wrong, I'm grateful to be here, but it was just 2 bedrooms, 2 rooms downstairs. Like, I'll admit it's a small house, and going to like a 4-bedroom with a conservatory and a garage, it was just all, I guess I was a bit wowed which probably was the effect that needed to happen to get me under control, I guess. But yeah, my mental health started to dip as more and more things were restricted or taken away from me. At the same time, my nan was becoming really, really ill with her dementia. It was starting to have a huge decline. And then obviously lockdown happened, and the first lockdown, I don't know if you're going to hear it all downstairs, but they've all just come home. But yeah, the first lockdown was alright. Like, the weather was nice, I spent a lot of time outside, got into a bit of a routine, but the cracks were starting to show majorly, and I kind of started seeing the relationship for what it was, which I think made me spiral even more, that I'd been so stupid to get myself in that situation. I wasn't on the best terms with my dad. We've got a very up and down relationship, and I think a lot of the time we're too similar and we're too stubborn, so neither of us will back down when it blows up. So yeah, just an amalgamation of those three. Earlier in 2020, before lockdown, before COVID was even a thing, I'd had COVID, what we presume is COVID. Then in the January, I was made redundant. But rather than just being like going in one day and being like, you know, you're made redundant, we still had to work 6 or 8 weeks with the possibility that you may have your job, you may not, which was a very stressful time. So then I got another job, and 3 weeks later we went into lockdown. So then obviously I was stuck at home. But like I say, I got into a routine, I was enjoying things. Social media was a big part of that as well. I got to speak to so many different people. I set up my Kelly Aviation Instagram account, which I think really helped me because there was no aviation, obviously, nothing was flying. So we were all like looking at each other's photos and all supporting each other and having some nice like conversations and stuff about, you know, air shows of the past. And I don't know, I made some really good friendships, and friendships that are still strong today, to be fair. And then October rolled around 2020 and I lost my job again. I'd been furloughed anyway, so I'd literally done 3 weeks at that job, and then was furloughed, and they decided they weren't going to reopen the office, so they didn't need me anymore. So I was made redundant, but luckily I did pick up a job straight away. So I was made redundant on the Friday, and I was so-called starting my job on the Monday. And then we went into another lockdown, and this was a hard lockdown for me because I wasn't entitled to furlough anymore because I changed jobs, not through any fault of my own. I got paid £13. I remember it coming through on the January pay. £13 was all I could get because that was the only hours I think it was like a training session or something like that, and that had to stretch 3 months. 3 long months. So then I got into like buying and selling on eBay. I survived. Like, it was a struggle, don't get me wrong, but I had that determination and I survived that. And yeah, then things opened up and I went back to work, and that was when I really noticed that Nan had taken a real downward turn. Basic things were now a struggle for her because she'd been on, she hadn't really seen anybody. She couldn't walk very far, like her speech had gone dramatically downhill, as had like just her memory and things as well, which is so sad. And I do think that if it hadn't been for the lockdowns, she probably wouldn't have faded so fast. So that was hard to see because it was literally just like 1 minute she was alright and then the next she really wasn't. And then Dad took early retirement so that he could look after Nan, and it wasn't too bad, but I just felt like I was walking around in a fuzzy state. Like, I felt detached from everything, as if I was me, but I was kind of watching from the outside. Like, I just didn't care about anything. All I wanted to do was go to bed. I didn't really want to speak to anyone. I didn't, we were getting invited as a couple to different family events and things. And of course I went. I wasn't, not going to go. But I wouldn't say I dreaded them, but I just didn't feel in the right headspace. And then a few things happened, and there was a few stresses and whatnot. And then I remember watching this video. I can't even remember who did it. It was on YouTube, and they were describing how they felt and the steps they were taking, and it just resonated with me. And all of a sudden I just clicked that what I was suffering from was depression, and I knew it was bad. And then I opened up to a friend of mine just how bad it was for me, and even they were shocked, because I was so good at putting on a front. I felt bad, I'd post a selfie, or I would do like a clean with me over on Instagram, and no one really knew, especially them. They hadn't worked out the signs, and they used to phone me every day just to check in that I was alright, if I needed to talk about anything. Then they urged me, after like a few weeks of talking and whatnot, they urged me to go and speak to my doctor. And so it took a little while. I didn't want to, because I felt if I got doctors involved, they would take over. But I did. I promised that I would. And so I did phone them, and I had to speak to a mental health nurse first, and he was nice enough. But I kind of got off the phone thinking, well, this is a pointless conversation, because there's been a few things that have happened before in my life where I've been offered counselling. Some I've taken the counselling, others I haven't. And for me personally, I don't think counselling works for me, because if I don't want to open up about something, then I won't. No matter how much somebody tries to get me to open up, it's just not going to happen. He was basically just like, well, there's nothing I can do. So then he referred me to my own GP, and she was lovely, which she always has been, to be fair. We were talking about various different things that, like Nan, Dad. I still didn't open up about the relationship I was in. I kept saying, no, that's, hunky-dory, it's lovely, really supportive, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't, but I couldn't admit that to anyone at that point. So then I was put on some antidepressants, and it was at that point I knew I needed to tell the other half, because I hadn't up until then. So I told them, and it all blew up. He didn't believe in antidepressants, which I know some people don't, but effectively he didn't want me to even try them. But I was getting my stubborn streak back, and I thought, you know what, I am going to try them. So I tried them. I was about a week in. Don't get me wrong, I was really drowsy. I found getting up in the morning so difficult. And midway through the second week, I think it was, he guilt tripped me and basically made me feel that I couldn't take them. Made me promise that I wouldn't take them. And that was hard. I mean, I'd only been on them for like nearly 2 weeks, but they were in my system. They were doing their thing. And all of a sudden, to go cold turkey, I felt so ill. So ill afterwards. And I remember sat there thinking, what's the point? Like, what's the point in life? It makes me sad to think that now. But I just thought that was always going to be my life. I was always going to be in that home, in that relationship. Nothing was ever going to change. It literally felt like Groundhog Day, because I couldn't change anything within that relationship because I was controlled. Everything was done as if I was a puppet, effectively. Things were said and done so that I thought and did things a certain way, or as the case may be, when it came to like fitness and wearing things I wanted to wear, I couldn't do those things. And I just didn't want to be here anymore. My friend was still phoning me every few days at this point, because they'd always do it when the other half wasn't there, because obviously I wouldn't have been able to talk openly or anything. I wasn't allowed phone calls. That would be too much, unless it was my mum, and then that was still a bone of contention. And by this point they were trying to convince me to leave. Saying just pack a bag with your essentials, passport, birth certificate, literally real essentials, and like just walk away. And they said that I would feel so much better in the long run. And I remember I was sat in bed, like tears streaming down my face, saying like, I can't leave. Like, he's got me right where he wants me. Like, I'll never be able to leave. And that went on for a couple of weeks. And then something sparked in me, and I suddenly put my foot down. Enough was enough, and I moved back over here, which, as I've said, that'll be like a conversation for another day. Either later in the year or maybe next year, I don't know. But those first few weeks after I moved back was so hard. I've got a photo, I don't know where it's to actually. I think it showed how much I was struggling. It was a new struggle as well. It was still my depression, like I know that. I didn't go back to the doctors and get any more tablets because I was ashamed to admit what had happened. But I was struggling in a new way now because I was terrified, and that brings, I think, a whole another dimension, especially with the depression as well. And I remember speaking to my friend on the phone, I think it's like a week after I'd come back, and I remember saying that I think he's going to drive me insane. Like, I feel like I'm mentally deranged, was what I felt like. Because I was so scared. It was nice weather, so I'd sit out in the garden, I'd have a cup of tea, I'd relax with Trix. But if I was going to be in the house on my own, I was that terrified that I'd come inside, block all the doors and windows until someone come home. And if mum and dad had gone out for the day, I would sit and swelter in the house because I was too terrified to go outside. And so that really did my head in, and it had such an impact. But you know what? It got better. Over time, it got better. I had lost a very close friend to me. Not really lost, I think it was just I guess in a way put on hold. We'd had an argument because of, we hadn't really had an argument. My ex had driven a wedge between us because that's what we wanted to do. Is probably more how to put it. And I'd spoken to her and there like over time, but it wasn't what it was. So then one day, I think it was like March or something, I'd been home a few weeks. I got in touch and said, "Do you want a McDonald's breakfast?" Like, we hadn't met up for a couple of years, it's got to be. So I think she had her suspicions, and yeah, I just admitted what had gone on and it explained a few bits. We'd agreed to go to the pub like a couple of weeks later so we could have like a proper catch up. And it really helped talking to somebody that knew me inside out. I mean, we were that close that half the time I didn't even need to say anything because she just knew what I was thinking. She had met the ex, so she knew and had formed her own opinion. And she had an inkling of what was going on, but I'd always deny it, so she just had to be there in the background, I guess, and hope that maybe one day I saw it for what it was. And yeah, she helped me to be savvy as well. She helped me to stand up on my own 2 feet. You know, like I'd get messages off the ex. As I've mentioned briefly in my review of 2022 video that I did, I'd get messages from the ex and I'd just forward them on to her. And we'd have a good laugh and she'd pull it apart and, you know, she'd very strictly tell me under no circumstances to reply, or if someone did need a reply, then she'd help me word it in a way that said who's boss kind of thing. And then I spoke to a couple other people, one of which is my now partner, and we helped each other in that as well because he was going through, I won't say a similar situation, but his own difficult period at that point. So we kind of helped each other through, and when like my other friends were off doing their thing with their boyfriends or you know, were away on holidays and things, which is great, like I love that they were able to do that, because their life still needs to carry on. But at the same time, me and Ash were just talking, along with a couple other people as well. Just helped to keep me busy in the evenings, I guess is the right way to say it, because the evenings were the worst. You know, I didn't necessarily want to go down and watch EastEnders, for example, especially because at that time the storyline was very, very similar to what I was going through. So yes, I just used to sit up in my room, not really do anything, and I was worried I was going to slip back into that bad mental state that I had been in. But no, with help of friends and family, I clawed my way back out. I can't say it was easy. I definitely think talking and opening up to people helped, which ironically, I guess in a way is what counselling does, but I still don't think I would be able to do that with a counsellor. Partly because I prefer to open up to someone in a normal setting, you know, like a friendly setting, like for instance breakfast or the pub or things like that, where you can just, I guess, put the world to rights with someone that you know and can trust, who's been in your life for more than just being a counsellor. But it's not to say counselling wouldn't work for anyone else if they're struggling. It just wasn't the path I wanted to go down. But yeah, and then slowly I set a plan and found things that I really enjoyed. I found my love of fitness again. I found my love of going for long walks, of spending time just sat at the beach, just like simple things. And then here I am, living proof that things can get better. Yes, I'm scared that something's going to happen at some point and I'm going to be knocked right back. I'm scared that, you know, one day when I have a family and stuff, will I be able to cope? Because you do hear a lot of stories of people that have had depression then getting postnatal depression. But I feel like that's just something I'm going to have to cross. When it comes to it, Ash has taught me so much in himself as well about being open and honest and saying things even if you know they're going to hurt or upset. Obviously saying them in a way that is constructive and compassionate in a way, you know, not just flinging something around knowing it's going to hurt someone. Yeah, so I wouldn't say I wasn't open and honest. Well, I wouldn't say I wasn't. Actually, I wasn't really. Like, I want to say I feel like I was always an open and honest person, but I learned to keep my cards close to my chest. And I was honest in day-to-day, you know, like general life. But yeah, I suppose in that relationship I learnt to make people believe that it was all hunky-dory and it wasn't. Whereas now, I'm in a relationship where I can be myself. I can say whatever's on my mind. I still struggle, don't get me wrong. Like, it's a work in progress and I'm still struggling quite a bit with that. But I'm getting there. And I feel like everything's fallen into place, if I'm honest. But if you are suffering from depression, or you feel like you are, then talk to someone. It's the best advice that I can give, whether that's family, friends, counsellor, another stranger. Yeah, just because I think when you say it out loud, you realise how bad it is, and when you realise how bad it is, that's when you can make the change. I think you've got to be honest with yourself about how you really are feeling before anything gets better. I think it's like that. You've got to accept the here and the now to improve things, if that makes sense. But I think I've rambled on enough in this video. I'm glad that I've spoken about it. I hope you don't mind this little rambly chat, but I feel like it's such an important thing to highlight. So many of us go through mental health issues one way or another, and a lot of the time it happens when you least expect it, or it can just creep up on you and suddenly you're in the thick of it. My DMs are always open if you do want to talk. I will try my best to remember to leave some links down below as well about some charities and things. These will be obviously UK based, although I'm sure there are a few of them that are worldwide anyway. But definitely get help if you need to. One way or another, just talk to someone, just let them in, and you won't believe what a listening ear can do in those first few stages. That is everything I think I'm going to say on the matter today. Thank you so much for watching if you've got to the end. Was a bit disjointed probably because, like I say, I wasn't going to go through this video idea, and it obviously explains why this video is a bit later than my usual 7 AM uploads. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll be back very soon, probably with a vlog. Maybe something a little bit more lighthearted than this.
Right now